Alright, in this video, this is the highlights from the TEAS live session number 7 that I did over in my Facebook group. You can find a link to that in the description. It was roughly 45-50 minutes. I have edited that video and condensed it down to just over 30 minutes. For those of you that are new, the beginning of this video, I do cover my resources, how to quickly find my resources, search through my resources, and also in this video, I left some of the chat pieces where students were asking questions during this live session. I go in there and I address those questions. This was a really good session. We had over 100 people as the session built on, so I was super excited about that. And one more thing I dive into in this particular session, I talk about the quality of this group and the way the group is growing and how I'm trying to build a good math community here to help you with the math portion of the TEAS. So please do not skip over this beginning part, especially if you're new to the math portion of the TEAS. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so it's 9 o'clock. We have about 40 people in here. Welcome to the TEAS Math live session number 7. I anticipate that we're going to have a pretty good crowd tonight, so I'm going to go over some things. We've had an influx of new members, so maybe quite a few of you watching right now are new to the group. Strictly TEAS Math, that's it. This is not for college algebra classes or statistics. This is for those of you trying to tackle the math portion of the TEAS. So I'm going to go over a few things before we do some math problems. Yes, we are going to do some math problems tonight. I have 4 of them set up. And I want you to get a feel for this because this works a lot like my mini sessions that I have. So I'm going to go over a few things with you real quick. My website. This has all of my TEAS math stuff, www.bcraftmath.com/ATITEAS. This is where you need to go to get all of your TEAS math stuff. I would say 90% of the stuff here is free. The only thing it's going to cost you is your time. And if you're just getting started, click on that box right there, just getting started. There's plenty of stuff up here, again, free. The free math practice test, the goals and objectives videos. Yes, it's still the same stuff in 2021. Free mix review, free formulas and conversions quiz, TEAS math tips videos. And then, if you scroll down through here, for example, if I click on the free math practice test, thousands upon thousands of folks have used this. You can download it right there. The answers are included, and then every single one of those questions has an individual video solution. So if you have not tried that free practice test, give it a shot. And again, individual video solutions here. So that's my TEAS Math website. A few more things I want to show you as well, making sure I'm covering everything. We already have 70 people in here, so that's fantastic. My YouTube channel. So YouTube channel. If you type in Brandon Craft TEAS, it'll probably pop up. And what I want to talk to y'all about before we dive into the math problems is how you can quickly find videos that I've done on specific topics. If you are at my YouTube channel, don't search up here, but instead search right here. This is going to search just my channel. For example, equations with fractions. And you don't even really have to type in that whole long thing, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Why not? Equations with fractions. Equations with fractions. As a matter of fact, this was one I did about a month ago. This was live session number 2, and we did 4 equations with fractions in that video. So tons of videos there. This again is searching specifically on my YouTube channel. Oh, let me pause that. But again, just my channel. And then if you look up here, it's going to find, videos all over YouTube. Let me show you one more thing back at my TEAS Math website, www.bcraftmath.com/ATITEAS. On a Mac, like a MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, if you hold the Command key and tap F, think of it as find. And when you do that, or on a Windows too, by the way, on Windows-based computers, if you hold Control and tap F, but again, on a Mac, Command F, on a Windows computer, Control F. It'll let you search. And since I'm on this page, let's type in, area. That's like a geometry topic. And using the arrows, you can go through my entire TEAS Math page and look, it highlights those words, the area or whatever word you want to type in. And all these blue links that you see here will take you to videos on my YouTube channel. So 2 quick ways to search stuff there. Let's see what else we got here. Workbook, my TEAS math workbook, and the multiple choice. This is some free stuff right here. Check this out. If you go over to my store, the free sample, this is a multiple choice quiz. And then if you like that, I think it's 15 questions on that. There's over 100 on this one. That one is not free, but this is the free sample here. If you do like that, it'll tell you what you got right and wrong. It'll give you explanations on how to get the right answer. And then my TEAS math workbook. I just made a huge update back in December, well over 1,000 problems, handwritten solutions, all that good stuff. And if you click on that, I would encourage you to, check out these videos, these initial launch videos, the updates that I've made. I've updated it over a dozen times since I released it in 2019. So 2 things there. And speaking of the stuff that I do have available in my store, the workbook and this 100+ multiple choice questions. They both get free updates. And as a matter of fact, if y'all go over to the group real quick, I'm going to pin this announcement. Go ahead and take a second. I'm just going to keep on blabbering on for a minute. But go ahead and take a second and look for this happy face post here. Click on that form. I'm going to give away a copy of both the workbook and the multiple choice quiz tonight at the end of this session. And what else? The mini sessions. The mini sessions have been a big hit. 2 things. The multiple choice math review, one student, she actually used that this week and got a 100 on the math portion of the TEAS. Feel free to look through the group. I'm going to show you some little clips of that right here in a second. And the mini sessions have been a big hit. I started doing those, I think, maybe a month, 2 months ago. And you can also find those over at my store as well. bcraftmath.com/store. Scroll on down to the bottom, TEAS Math Mini Course. And you can see that I do have some that have already sold out. And here, these are the next 2 that that have not sold out, but the ones that I'm doing tomorrow night, starting tomorrow night, and then the one on the 21st and 22nd, those are already booked. But, $20, 2 hours, 10 people or less, and we actually talk through microphones. These have been really good based on the feedback that I've received from students. So consider that if you want to work in a smaller group, we can chat, not through a chat box per se, but we can actually talk through microphones. Let me see what else we got here. We almost have 100 people. I would love for 100 people to be here, but anyway, so I talked about my website, my YouTube channel, the TEAS workbook, the sample quiz, mini sessions, how to quickly find stuff. By the way, once I'm done with this mini session tonight, I'll add these notes to the Facebook group, and then I'll take this video that I'm making here. I'm actually recording it right now. I'll edit it, and I'll re-add this to the group in a shorter version. Just some other things down here. I think it's a mixed bag when you take that test. Yes, 23 of the graded questions do come from numbers and algebra, which is your arithmetic, order of operations, equations, whereas 9 of those graded questions come from measurement and data. So 32 graded questions, and to my knowledge, there's still 4 of those pre-test or ungraded questions there as well. And I'm glad y'all are enjoying the workbook. The newest thing too with me doing that multiple choice quiz, let me just stop talking about it and show you what one student said. You can find these posts in the group, but this post right here, if you look for that in the group, she actually got a 100 and she used live sessions. I actually did some private tutoring with her. I do private tutoring as well. She used my workbook and she used a multiple choice review. She got 100, and this was a post from today. So check these out. And this is based off of mini sessions, the workbook, on top of all the free stuff. Now, don't forget about the free stuff. And then I think it was this week. Yeah, Wednesday, there was a student here. She was kind enough to share this stuff with me. Look at her first attempt on the math, 31.3. And then she came to one of the mini sessions. And of course, she did put in some time and tried the free practice test, tried the videos and all that good stuff. Look at her score, 90.6. I mean, she went from a 31 to a 90.6. That is fan-freaking-tastic. So, yeah, true stories. I'm not making any of this stuff up. And this group that I started back at the end of August, the group that you all are in now, Heck yeah, we got over 100 people in here. That's awesome. Folks, I started this at the end of August, and we've just passed 3,000 members, and I try my best to keep the scammers and the spammers out. Thanks for reporting those people. I don't put up with that junk, so I give them to boot real quick. No questions asked. So thank you all for that. I love the communication that's starting to be built in here as we're getting more and more members, people asking for help. Everybody's being, kind and courteous and respectful of each other. And me being an instructor for 15 years, I love that. I love this little community, and y'all, it has become a big part of my life. I ain't lying to you. I'm the only moderator of the group. Maybe eventually I will get some other people involved, but I mean, this has been life-changing for me. I mean, working with people like this all over the country, especially during the pandemic. I have not been in a physical classroom since March of 2019, so this is the closest thing I have to working with people. So thank you all so much. And finally, that was my little spiel. Sorry, I know I went over a little bit, but now let's look at some problems. So this is going to kind of be a preview of how the mini sessions work. It's going to be multiple choice questions, except in the mini sessions, I give those students a minute and a half, sometimes a little bit more time to work the problems out on their own, but I'm not going to do that here. That way I can just go through the problems with you. If you like this, if you like my style of teaching, then consider booking a mini session or reach out to me for some private tutoring. So without further ado, I did get one question. One student said, hey, can we do an absolute value equation with fractions? Yeah, and that's going to be the first one that we see right here. So absolute value equations, I haven't heard a whole bunch of people saying that this has popped up, but I have heard people say that it has popped up. So I want to work this with you anyway. I would encourage you, if you're not familiar with absolute value, still pay attention to this. We're going to be solving some equations, and here we got fractions. So I do have an entire series on absolute value equations, and the first thing we want to do here is, since this absolute value here is completely by itself, I'm going to rewrite it. So I have 2/3 x plus 5, and this is going to be equal to 21 over 2. But it turns out with absolute value, this thing that we have inside of here, it can be a positive value or it can be a negative value, because when you take the absolute value of something, it automatically becomes a positive number. But the gist of it in 2 minutes or less is to really just copy the thing down without the absolute value and then copy it down again. Let me just slide that here. So I'm going to copy that literally. And what I'm going to change is, instead of using a positive 21 over 2, I'm going to use a negative 21 over 2. So pretty much what we have here are two equations to solve, and they are equations with fractions. Folks, my second live session, if you're just tuning in, the second live session I did about a month ago, the entire free live session I did there was nothing but equations with fractions. Go check that out. But the way I like to handle these, some people do say, can I convert fractions to decimals to make equations easier? Yes, but in this case, look at the 2/3, folks. 2/3, I call it a funky decimal. I don't want to mess with that type of decimal. So this is not a good problem, really, to convert the fractions to decimals. I mean, the 21 over 2 here, 21 divided by 2, that's 10.5. That's an okay decimal, but the 2/3 isn't. So here's how I like to handle these. I like to multiply both sides by a common denominator. I see a 3. This is an understood 1, 5 over 1, and then we have a 2. A common denominator for all of these is going to be 6. So I'm going to take 6 and I'm going to multiply it by the left-hand side, and then I'm also going to take 6 and multiply it by the right-hand side. Now, feel free to grab your calculator if you want to, but I'm going to go through this. That way we can cover this problem and 3 additional problems as well. If you were to take 6 times 2/3, 6 times 2, that's going to give us 12. And I'll take it step by step with you. That's no problem. 6 times 2 gives us 12. And some people make a mistake and multiply 6 by 3. That is not correct, because technically this is 6 over 1. So 6 times 2, 12. 1 times 3 is 3, and then we have our x. Now let's take 6 times 5. This gives us a positive 30. Again, you have to multiply both pieces. Think of it as the distributive property. And now let's repeat that process over here. 6 times 21. Grab your calculator. That is 126. Just make sure. 21 times 6. That's going to be 126, I believe. Yes. So we have 126 over 2. And you may think this is a hot mess, but it's not, folks. All we have to do here, 12 divided by 3, 4x plus 30. And this will be equal to 126 divided by 2. That actually works out quite nicely, and I clicked on the wrong button. But 126, let's take that and divide it by 2, and we get 63. So these skills that I'm showing you here are what you definitely want to practice. Solving equations, getting x by itself. So let's finish this off. We're going to subtract 30 from both sides. And the better you get with equations, you want to skip some of these steps of writing everything down. 30s cancel out. 4x is equal to 63 minus 30. That is going to be 33. And then if we divide both sides by 4, finally getting x by itself, we have x equals 33 over 4. Now, I know you may be thinking, this is going to take a long time. But let's focus on the fundamentals too. Solving equations. Once you practice absolute value equations, it's really just going to boil down to you writing it down 2 times and keeping one positive and making one negative. So going through it one more time. Well, what can we eliminate so far? We can eliminate this one and this one because these have negative 33 over 4, and we said our answer was positive 33 over 4. So let me finish this one right here, and then I will look at the comments real quick. It's really the same thing again, folks. We're taking 6, common denominator, multiplying both sides. And the only thing that's going to change here is the right-hand side, because remember, we made it negative earlier. So I'm just going to, for sake of time, I'm going to skip this. It's the same stuff. I'm multiplying 6 by the same junk. So we have 4x. I'm really just copying this over. Plus 30, but instead of it being equal to a positive 63, this is just going to be a negative 63. And then from here, if we solve this, subtract 30 from both sides. I'm just going to skip a few steps here for sake of time. If we subtract 30 from this side, we will have 4x is equal to negative 93. You got to watch your signs there. Maybe it is worthwhile for me to write that step down. You got to be careful with your signs there. So the 30s cancel. Divide by 4. This will not simplify, and there is our second answer, negative 93 over 4. And I did see some people put C down, and that's exactly right. Now, I know that's long, but if you practice this, getting that common denominator, multiplying by a common denominator, if you're not sure why I'm doing that, check out live session number 2 over on my YouTube channel, or you can find it at my TEAS Math website. But ultimately what it boils down to, folks, is we are getting some really nice looking equations here. Nice, pretty whole numbers, no ugly fractions to deal with. Okay, Victoria says, is it safe to assume that you'll always have a positive and negative answer? Actually, that I would never make that assumption. A lot of times you do, but I never make that assumption. Because sometimes you can have 2 positives, or sometimes you could definitely have 2 negatives as well. Let's see here. Okay, Crystal Foster said, why did I divide by 2? Well, let's see. Where did I divide by 2 at? Right here? I think that's the only spot. Yeah, so 6 times 21, that gives me that 126. And back to here, this is 6 over 1. So we take top times top. That's 126. Bottom times bottom, we get 2. And that's what 126 over 2 means. That means 126 divided by 2. I hope that answers your question there. Somebody said, okay, replying to Victoria, have the same question. Okay. Question was, how does private tutoring work? The way that works is if you go to request and click on private tutoring at my website, there's plenty of information right there. Have a look at that when we're done with the session tonight. And I can talk to y'all in the group about that as well. So I'm going through this a little bit faster than what I typically do. You can go back and rewatch this video as many times as you want and maybe slow me down a little bit. And again, I'm giving you a preview of those mini sessions that I do. I do move much slower. I let students come in on their mics, ask questions. So just keep that in mind. All right. Switching gears, a word problem. This is what most people struggle with, word problems. But the thing with word problems, folks, is that it's so daggone broad. When a student tells me I struggle with word problems, that doesn't really tell me too much because there's so many different types. But nonetheless, on this one, how much will a family spend on gas for a road trip if their vehicle gets 21 miles per gallon and their total trip distance was 1,200 miles? Assuming the price per gallon is $2.12. Round to the nearest dollar. So the quickest way to do this is, here's how I would do it. I would take the total number of miles, 1,200 miles, and I'm going to write that word down just to kind of make something, maybe stick it home with you here as I cover this. I'm going to take the 1,200 miles and I'm going to divide by 21 miles per gallon. If we take 1,200 miles and we divide it by 21 miles per gallon, so 1,200 divided by 21, we get 57 point blah, 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 1428, yada, yada, yada. We don't need all those crazy numbers. What does this really tell us? Let's think about it. Now, you don't have time to think about this on the test, but we can talk about it right now. If you take the total number of miles and you divide that by how many miles you get per gallon, this actually tells you how many gallons of gas you're going to use. So if a family goes on a 1,200 mile trip and their vehicle gets 21 miles per gallon, they will burn roughly 57 gallons of gas. Well, the question says, how much will they spend? How much are they going to spend? If they're going to burn roughly this many gallons of gas and each gallon costs this much money, we want to multiply this by $2.12. Now, yes, you can do proportions here. It would require more than one proportion, but I'm trying to show you a faster way because the test is timed. So again, there are other ways of approaching this, but watch how quick we can do this in one swoop on the calculator. Take the total number of miles, 1,200 miles, divide that by how many miles we get per gallon. So I'm dividing by 21. There's that same funky number I talked about a minute ago. This represents how many gallons of gas that we will burn or that family will burn. Well, 57 gallons, let's multiply that by the price per gallon, $2.12, and we get right around $121. That's how much the family is going to spend, rounded to the nearest dollar, that is. So our answer here would be B. I'm going to check some of the comments. And see, some people are like, I like this way better than a proportion. I agree. The main thing I see people struggling with, like doing proportions and not doing proportions. Some people don't know when to multiply versus dividing. They get confused. They get tongue twisted on which way they should go. So proportions are possible, but I like this way a lot better. Let's see. Okay, I see a lot of B's. Fantastic, y'all. So we are getting this right. All right. Very good. So that was number 2. Number 3, switching gears again. This is a common type of problem you will run across where maybe you have to translate something. It says 9 less than 3 times a number is 5 more than the number. Well, what is the number? Now, you can do some guessing and checking, but I'm going to show you the translating way because there's a good chance where the TEAS might just give you this sentence and they'll say translate it. They might not ask you to solve it, but we're going to do both here. So 9 less than 3 times a number. We don't know what in the heck that number is, so we call it the good old X. So 9 less than 3 times a number. So I see 3 times a number. Automatically, I'm thinking 3X. If we want 9 less than that, 9 less than 3 times a number, you want to subtract 9 from it. Do not put 9 minus 3x. That's a common mistake I see people make. Listen to this. Listen to this. What is 9 less than 20? 9 less than 20 is 11, right? And probably what you did without even thinking about it. When I said, what is 9 less than 20? You did 20 minus 9. You did not do 9 minus 20, did you? So same concept. 9 less than 3 times a number. And then it says is means equal, 5 more than the number. So you can write x plus 5, or you can write 5 plus x. It does not matter. X plus 5, 5 plus x, that simply means 5 more than the number. Now, on the TEAS, if it just said write an equation, essentially we are translating it. This is the translation. We have taken this sentence and converted it to an algebraic equation. But now the question says, what is the number? So let's practice our equation skills some more. I like to move the smaller to the bigger, or the smaller x. I'm going to take away x on both sides. And folks, this is 1x, by the way. Understood 1x. Now, why am I doing that? If I take 1x minus 1x, where there's no x's, they cancel out over there. 3x's minus 1x, we still have 2x's left. So 2x, bring down our minus 9, and this is equal to 5. Let's move our 9 over by adding, trying to get x by itself. We have 2x is equal to 14. And then 2 times what gives you 14? Without even dividing by 2, hopefully you're thinking, well, that number's 7. And if we do divide by 2, just taking those step-by-step process, dividing by 2, we do get that number, x, is equal to 7. Our answer is B. And I do see, so Fatima, I get confused on this type of question, and that's where the practice comes in. I've seen several questions here in the group, other Facebook groups. If you were to search for things, translating expressions, translating equations, and just practice, that is the best thing I can tell you. And I know you've probably heard everybody say that. I call myself, this is going to sound corny, but I call myself a mathlete. Not an athlete, but a mathlete. An athlete practices a lot to be good at the sport they are at. I have practiced math forever and ever and ever, so I call myself a mathlete. Practice is what makes you better. There was a time in my life where I could not do these problems, and I just stuck with it. And now I'm making a living out of it, and I love it. Okay, very good. So I do see this. I don't know if I should use a minus instead of a less than. Let me go ahead and nip that one in the butt because I hear that all the time. I totally understand what you're saying. So let's look at 2 ways of this whole less than thing, because people think, well, should I use an inequality or should I be subtracting? What is 5 less than 20? The way that's worded, that answer is going to be 15, right? Well, what we're doing there is we're taking 20 minus 5. That's 5 less than 20. Now, listen to this. 5 is less than 20. This is where we would write 5 is less than 20. And I ain't gonna lie to you. This little itty bitty word right there is what makes all the difference. 5 is less than 20. Yes, that is correct. So we're translating that into an inequality. Whereas up here, it says, what is 5? Not 5 is less, but what is 5 less than 20? You almost got to think about it as if somebody was speaking to you, talking about it. But that word is, where that word is located can make all the difference there. I hope that does clear that up. I'm glad y'all are finding this helpful. And hearing stuff like that, whenever I stop hearing that, that's when I'm going to quit. But I do appreciate the feedback. Thank you all so much. Should we always move the variable x from the right to the left? You can. If you always want to remind yourself to do that, absolutely. You don't have to, though. That's the beautiful thing about math. There's so many ways to solve equations. You don't have to move the variable from the right to the left. But if you want to remind yourself that, roll on with it. Greater than or equal to wording, I would say check out my website. I do have some inequalities there. But for sake of time, let's look at this last problem together. A meter stick is divided into 4 equal parts. These smaller parts are then cut in half. How long are these individual pieces? Well, let's look at our answers. Our answers are in centimeters. Centimeters. Okay, well, we have a meter stick. This is a conversion that you just want to go ahead and remember. I know we've all heard of the King Henry thingamajigger, but 1 meter will always be equal to 100 centimeters. That's always going to be true. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because all of my answers are in centimeters. So what are we going to do with this meter stick or this 100 centimeter stick? We're going to divide it into 4 equal parts. So I'm going to take 100 centimeters, divide it into 4 equal parts. So these 4 equal parts will be 25 centimeters each. So these are the smaller parts. And then what are we doing to these smaller parts? We're going to cut them in half. When you cut something in half, you divide it by 2. So, and I'm not going to write it there. I'm going to come down here and write it. So if we take the 25 centimeters, that's what we got after we broke it into 4 equal parts. Now we're going to cut these pieces into 2. We get a nice decimal here. 25 divided by 2 is 12.5 centimeters. And D will be our final answer there. So, you know, various types of things. And I'm actually pretty good with time. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to go back. A student did ask about greater than, less than, or greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to. So let me just write a few notes up here about that. Greater than or equal to, and let me come in here and put less than or equal to. Some common words for greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to, we could say at least. Whereas less than or equal to, the most common one there is probably at most. Or you may hear somebody say no more than. And there's so many ways you could word it. That's just a few I'm throwing off there. Because listen to this. If I said I have at least $20 in my pocket. If I have at least $20 in my pocket, that means it could be greater than or equal to 20. Because I could have 20, I could have 21, I could have $1 million. I wish, but at least, if you have at least $20 in your pocket, you have 20 or more. So that's greater than or equal to. Whereas if I say I have at most $20 in my pocket, that means less than or equal to. At most $20 in my pocket means $20 or less. So that's the difference between there, greater than or equal to versus less than or equal to. Medication math, I sure do. Med dosage, a lot of people that I've worked with privately through the TEAS, I have seen them all the way through every math class they've taken, including med dosage, statistics. But the TEAS has been the real blessing for me. I mean, I made some of those older videos back in 2015, 2016. They took off, and it has led to this moment right here. And I'm so blessed to still be doing it. So medical math, I do med dosage stuff as well. A question, is a meter 100 centimeters always and forever? All right, there we go. So everybody's name is in here, and one winner. I'll be in touch with you at the end of the session, and good luck. Let's see who gets a copy of the workbook and the multiple choice quiz tonight. All right, Miss Soley, Sandrine Soley, congratulations. Look for me to shoot you a message right here momentarily. And that is it, folks. If I missed a question right here towards the end, I am sorry, but thank you all for attending, and look for this video within the next 2 days. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night and the rest of your weekend. Good night.